Hello and good afternoon. I'm Andy Murphy, the Technical Director at Pescado. We're a telecoms and IT company who prides itself on presenting technical solutions that make sense. Today I'm going to talk to you about how technology is responding to the current situation and how we have adapted as a business during this extremely challenging time while prioritising the mental health and well-being of our staff. In this session, I will also introduce you to Katie Jacobs from CIPD and Leighton Green, the Executive Director from PPMA. No one expected back in March earlier this year that technology would save humanity. But interestingly, it kind of has. The kind of humanity that FaceTimes family, that fills its cupboards with online groceries and organises virtual nights in, pub quizzes with their friends and family over Zoom. The real challenge has been, how do we differentiate between work life and home life? If the same technologies are used during the day, Monday to Friday, how can we switch off and protect mental health and well-being? In a global Microsoft study, over 30% of first-line and information workers said the pandemic had increased their sense of burnout at work. And 1/3 of remote workers said the lack of separation between work and home life is negatively impacting their well-being. Now, we have a duty of care as employers. Employers have to draw that line and make clear what's acceptable and what isn't, and ensuring that we say what tech is for work and what isn't. What we've done at Pescado and what we're consistently saying to our customers, think about what your people need, then select the right technology for your organization, not the other way around. Too often we find organizations relying on legacy tech, or worse still, the free-to-use platforms that are already in play with employees' daily lives. This means there's no escape, no start or end of the working day. So when everything changed thanks to COVID, we listened to our own advice. While we were well placed as a technology business to go remote, we have the IT, the connectivity, the telephony in place. 40% of our workforce were already using those tools. We still had 60% of our staff to consider, and 30% of our staff had never ever worked from home. This was an incredibly daunting experience for them as we embarked on this journey. We quickly came up with a technology strategy to make sure we kept our team connected. We used surveys, knowledge sharing webinars, and the line manager led one-to-ones to collate specific needs of individuals and to determine the right user experience for our business, and also while considering different needs of individuals. This resolved into a single unified communications experience, all for one and one for all, and that's the really crucial point. As we ran around sourcing kit and training staff, so in turn they could work and support our customers, we knew that the tech our business we couldn't compromise that home life for our staff. But we also knew that we needed to maintain teamwork, that ability to see and speak to your colleagues, and that is massively important for the collective health and well-being of our staff. We have daily calls at 9 a.m. on Teams, like a virtual commute with coffee. We have all hands meeting or town hall meetings where we get the whole company together and directors speak and give people an update. It's been really important to us that although staff are remote and working from home, we needed to ensure that they're still up to date with where the business is and how the business is performing in what is really challenging trading times. We've had a little bit of fun. We started something called Pingo, which I've led. It's a sort of a special Pescado bingo, which we run every few weeks. We've had some good fun doing that. We've done some fancy dress. We've even involved, team members. Children have come in with the fancy dress, which has been absolutely fabulous. We've also been running weekly yoga sessions with the Good Food Yogi, and we've supplemented that with deliveries from the Brad Brownie company. So not everybody's had to do yoga. They've had a chance to eat some chocolate cake as well. But all these social interactions are still running because humanity demands it and technology provisions for it. And as a business, we found that massively key to us. It's not just ourselves, it's organizations of all sizes around the world who've seen the importance of this, and technology is adapting incredibly quickly to allow us to have more insight, to make sure that the technology allows our staff to balance their days and try to sort of have almost a workplace, but very much at home. What I'd like now to show you is just a couple of minutes video from Microsoft and some of the things that Microsoft Teams is doing around ensuring that staff can balance their workday and plan accordingly.
It's a new world out there. We're commuting less, virtually meeting more. Separating work life and life can feel challenging. It's easy to forget that to thrive at work, we need to take care of ourselves. New well-being and productivity insights, powered by My Analytics and Workplace Analytics, are being integrated into Microsoft Teams. Personal insights help you stay at your best and most productive. Add structure to your remote workday by opting for a virtual commute, carving out time to have a productive start in the morning and mindfully disconnect in the evening. Schedule breaks before your calendar fills up, keeping you from getting burned out. Make the most of your mental breaks with Headspace, tapping into dedicated moments of mindfulness. Use emotional check-ins to tune into your and your team's day-to-day mindset and well-being. Strengthen team bonds with stay-connected experiences that prompt you to praise collaborators, schedule one-on-ones, and follow up on pending commitments and outstanding tasks. Insights for managers and leaders from Workplace Analytics offer windows into how work happens and the impact on employee well-being. Identify where teams may be isolated and take action to break down silos. Quickly discover opportunities to prevent burnout, promote coaching and development, and boost engagement. You and your team's well-being is important, especially in times of change. Taking care of one another allows you to thrive and your organization to build resilience. Experience how new well-being insights in Microsoft Teams can help.
Okay, so I hope that video was informative and useful. I think it certainly gives us a feel for what technology is going to bring to us over the sort of coming periods. I think it's really key to see that the major technology players around the world are innovating at speed to address the changes that we're going through around work-life balance and some of the things around the pandemic. So I think there's lots of things that are on its way. It's mimicking real life experience, like transcribing minutes for meetings, virtual breakout rooms, and they're also building in sort of health and well-being functions. Now, some of these innovations aren't live yet, but we're already prioritizing the well-being of our own employees using the insights within Microsoft 365, and this will shortly be introduced to our team. So that we can help our team structure their days a little bit better, we're staying on it will really help in them prioritizing tasks, understanding that they need to still take breaks. You know, one of the things that I think can happen when you're working from home in particular is that you sit at the same desk looking at the same four walls, and it's really important to continue to nurture the relationships within the business, nurture sort of relationships with your clients, customers, and that's a really key thing that we've done at Pescado. Now, like many other businesses around the world, we've chosen to integrate ourselves completely into the Microsoft Teams environment. That gives us effectively a single unified communications experience. We use that for team meetings, chat, our phone calls, or go through that, or voice communication is now through Teams on both laptops, PCs, when people make it into the office, and also mobile phones. And I think that sort of fully unified experience, and where people can move between devices and have something that looks and feels the same, is really, really important. It's really important to consider that, you know, what I think, you know, its potential at the workspace of the future has changed forever now. The pandemic has driven us to where work isn't a physical space necessarily. We might be moving around more. We may well be working from almost anywhere, and I think it's key that the technology helps us do that in a way that allows us to keep that sort of work-life balance, because it's absolutely key. One of the things we're also doing is, we've had a few new starters across this pandemic period. So we have a number of virtual department meetings, which helps people integrate, because actually starting a job in these times is really, really tricky, because you're coming in, whereas, you know, go back 12 months, you'd walk into a busy office place with, you know, anywhere between, you know, it could be in a business of 10 people, or you could be in a business of 5,000. And you're walking into a busy environment. Actually, people are now being onboarded into roles remotely completely. So actually the technology that integrates you into your team and integrates you into working with your colleagues and people you'll be reliant on is massively, massively key. So to reiterate, for us, This has only been made possible by a single unified system. There's been no multi-platform jumping, no different apps. There's no, we're not trying to shoehorn one department working in one app, somebody else in so that does it work. Actually, we're all working in one environment that I think has been massively important. And they are customers like all businesses. They're absolutely our focus for the commercial stability of the business, which in turn, secures and builds confidence and well-being in our teams. So that's hugely key. Throughout the pandemic, we've been running call-out campaigns, checking in with our customers who's still in the office, who've been working from home, who's had to furlough staff. We've sent out emails with guides for home working solutions. Business continuity, we ran free trials of Teams. All this communication was within the same system, internal and external. It's quite literally keeping us healthy. One cloud, one set of tools, one team on Teams, a single intuitive login, and an interface from any device regardless of location. Full control over how, where, and when you can be reached, and do not disturb to limit interruptions when you need that focus space. Seamless video calls, transfers, and forwarding with voicemail all in one place. So it's absolutely, it's made an amazing difference to our business. I think it's brought us through. It has changed our working environment. Whether we'll ever really go back to how we worked before, it is certainly a question that will be interesting to see over the next 12 months. But without doubt, the technology that we've embraced and that in truth our staff have embraced, which is the really key thing. We're not as a business all very technical. People are learning new skills as we go along, and I think that's been really, really key to the success of our rollout and the success of how we're working. I hope that was useful, and I'd now like to pass over to Katie Jacobs from CIPD.
Thanks very much, Andy. Hi everybody, my name is Katie Jacobs. I work at the CIPD, and if you're not aware, the CIPD, we are the professional body for the people profession. So that covers HR, it covers L&D and OD. And we represent more than 157,000 members, mainly in the UK, but also globally. And the last 9 months have definitely been a bit of a roller coaster for the profession, that's for sure, and for us as a professional body as well. We've seen HR step up and onto the organisational frontline of COVID response. And health and wellbeing has been a really massive part of that, whether it's been about protecting the safety of frontline workers or helping people to work from home more effectively, or increasingly dealing with feelings of burnout and people struggling with poor mental health. So I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about how we prioritise health and wellbeing and how we can increase a sense of connection via the use of technology, but also the kind of things that we need to watch out for as well. So I just want to run you through some stats. These stats come from CIPD research on the impact of COVID-19 on work and working lives. And it's important to remember that these go for both those working at home and those working on the front line of the pandemic, under immense pressure and at risk of things like PTSD. So we've been running this survey pretty much monthly since the start of the pandemic and lockdown, just to kind of get a temperature check on how people are feeling. So I've just pulled out a few stats about mental health in particular. The last survey data found that 45% say their mental health has got worse since the start of the pandemic. 43% say their social connections at work have got worse. And for those with anxiety or depression or existing mental health conditions already, it's been a really exacerbating factor. So you can see that 74% of those with anxiety and 68% of those with depression say that COVID-19 has contributed to or worsened their mental ill health. Quite encouragingly, 68% say their manager has checked in on their health and well-being since the health of the pandemic. But then since the onset of the pandemic, but then if we flip that, that means that 22% of people haven't had any sort of check-in at all, which is pretty worrying and is definitely contributing to the fact that people are feeling potentially isolated, burnt out, anxious, whether they're sitting at home or working in a workplace. So we've talked a little bit this morning about technology and how that can help enable a sense of connection. So I just wanted to run through some of the positives that technology brings, but also some of the things that we really need to watch out for. So on the positive side, we do see that technology is helping to maintain a sense of connection for most people. And for some people, it's making it even stronger. Some people that I've spoken to within my network feel they're more connected to their organisation than they were before, because there are so many things going on, so many calls, so many opportunities for us to speak, not face to face, but Zoom to Zoom, as it were. It's also accelerated a much needed digital transformation. So I'm sure we've all reflected on the fact that for many organisations, the pandemic enforced years worth of digital transformation into only a few weeks. And doing that has also accelerated us into new ways of working. Are we entering a new flexible world where people can work from anywhere? And it's also got the opportunity to democratise work and offer more opportunities for voice, particularly if you were in an office, a London office, or you had HQs around the country. Potentially, it could be that the people in London and the people who turned up to the office had their voices heard the loudest. Now that more people are working at home, do we have an opportunity to make sure that you are heard from anywhere? But there are also negatives and things we really have to watch out for. The first one I wanted to raise was burnout, and I think I'm calling it the rise of digital presenteeism. So rather than working from home, most of us feel like we're living at work, and the need to kind of put those boundaries in to make sure that people do not get burnt out. And also the need for people to feel that they do not need to be sat at their desk the whole time. I think especially as the days get shorter and we have far less opportunities to get out and make the most of the daylight, people need to feel that they can leave and go for a walk in the middle of the day and not be sat. You don't want to be a slave to that red or green light on Teams. We also need to watch out for how we make hybrid working truly work, because hybrid working is the model that most organisations are thinking about going for. But how do we make it inclusive? How do we get to a point where if half your people are in the office and half people are at home, everybody's voice is heard and everybody has the same opportunities wherever they happen to be sat? And I feel that we've perhaps lifted and shifted our old ways of working into a new world of work. So the fact that rather than just being sat at a desk in an office, we're sat at a desk at home. So how do we create more truly flexible models of working? Because at the moment, what we're doing isn't very flexible, right? We are being enforced to work at home. And then the final thing to watch out for is the rise of monitoring. And we have seen quite a few headlines recently about organisations that are using technology to monitor the output of their workers or to check where they are at all times. Now, remote working does require high levels of trust and the ability to manage performance on outputs rather than inputs. So that's something we need to consider as well. And I'm just going to finish by taking you very quickly through some practical tips. The first one is you need to train and support your people managers. You need to train them in the importance of well-being. You need to train them in how they can spot danger signs of mental ill health. And you need to train them in how they can actually manage people via outputs rather than inputs. When you're talking to your line managers, we need to be encouraging them to have regular wellbeing check-ins. So not every meeting has to be about where are you on this project, but actually speaking to their people and asking how are you really and how are you feeling, and creating the space for those kind of conversations. Leaders and managers need to role model these kind of positive behaviours. So if we know that our leaders are, getting out at half an hour at lunchtime, taking a break, getting some fresh air, it enables the rest of the organisation to feel like they can do it as well. But if leaders and managers aren't doing it, then what hope is there for the rest of us? We need to be thinking about bringing people together and how we can prioritise social connection, even in a remote first world. So not about putting in enforced fun, but talking to your people about what they want, how you can encourage that kind of informal social connection that you would get around the water cooler or over lunch. You need to look at reviewing your workloads while possible. A lot of us are busier than we've ever been before, but if we are really, really overworked and we are working at home the whole time, then having those boundaries is quite difficult. So is there anything you can do to take the pressure off people? And that includes taking and encouraging regular breaks, including using annual leave. So making sure that people don't feel so busy that they can't take some time out. And even if we can't go anywhere, the importance of rest is brilliant, is so important. I heard a fantastic phrase in a session the other day, which is that rest isn't a reward, rest is a right. And I think that's something we really need to be getting across to our workforces. We need to be signposting support, and I can give a quick plug to CIPD resources. We've got so much on our website. If you visit our CIPD Coronavirus Hub, that includes a full wellbeing briefing deck for line managers, which you can find on our website and you can use to train your line managers. And the final point I want to make is the importance of putting your own oxygen mask on first. As people professionals, we're under a huge amount of pressure to support our organisations and individuals, but you can't support others unless you look after yourselves. We've launched a wellbeing helpline for CIPD members, which can also be found on our website. So I would encourage you to check that out, and to remember that it's fine to put yourself first sometimes, and to take a little bit of time out and to really prioritise self-care, because if you do that, then you will come back and be able to support others more strongly. So I think that's me out of time. So thank you very much. I put my contact details there in case there's anything anyone wants to follow up on. I'm going to pass over to Leatham now. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Katie. And it's great to be here with you today. And just to remind you all, I'm Leatham Green. I'm the Executive Director of the PPMA, which for those of you who haven't heard of us, it stands for the Public Service People Management Association. And we're an association of HR and OD practitioners across all areas of public sector, including local government, central government, blue light. And we've also got some colleagues from the third sector who join us. And it's a real privilege to be here with you today, kind of sharing some highlights of what's been going on over the past months. I mean, it's really been quite an amazing time, hasn't it? I mean, our public services, I think through this period have demonstrated that we're packed full of brilliant human beings with an abundance of talent that's been on display daily in our televisions and on the newspapers and headlines. We've seen firsthand how services delivered across the sector touches the lives of each and every one of us every day, and how we've supported local communities during this really tricky and difficult time. And our ability to influence for the better is really unrivaled, I think, across all parts of the HR and OD profession. And for the past 8 or 9 months, this has been an extraordinary experience for all of us, a time of huge contrasts and huge extremes that many of our colleagues in public services have experienced. There's been real tragedy, and some of you will have witnessed that firsthand. And for many, especially those who are supporting in local communities, a real sense of isolation, and others, perhaps a time for positive reflection, but without question, definitely without question. And, we've seen this through many of our conversations we've had in PPMA. Much of what's carried us through is an overwhelming sense of humanitarian compassion. And that's been shared openly throughout this time of fear and anxiety that many have experienced. And I'm sure that as we kind of continue to navigate our way through this time, it will continue to be. So how do we deal with that? And also, how has technology helped us to get through this with a real sense of achievement? But what I've noticed, definitely what I've noticed over these past 8 months or so, is that boundaries across the sector, teams and responsibilities have appeared less obvious and less of an obstacle. And the constraining influences of national bodies seems to have been eased. And there's been a sense of real strong, inclusive team working that I hadn't witnessed certainly before this. And communication styles, and this is particularly where technology has benefited. So the styles and methods have changed for the better. They've been shorter, more focused, intense. That opportunity for daily briefs and huddles have really kind of taken off and liberated the way that organizations engage with their workforce and the people they're serving. In communities positively engaged with local services, the volunteering increased and people taking greater responsibility for their own health and well-being. And as I said, much of this innovation and creativity and problem solving has been delivered through the exploitation and use, positive use of technology. So there's been much innovation to celebrate, and amongst this backdrop of tragedy and challenge, real liberation has taken place, this kind of revolution of the way that we work and operate, which has been astounding. I can't imagine this ever have happened had we not experienced this dreadful situation. So I've only got time today to kind of touch upon some of the highlights, and the 3 things I'm going to pick up with you. So the first is around kind of how our public sector have recruited thousands of additional workers at pace and scale without compromising the standard of safety and care for the vulnerable. So check out the fantastic work of the Department for Health Northern Ireland and health sector talent, who responded really swiftly and effectively to securing thousands of additional public sector healthcare professionals. needing to exploit the full functionality of technology to enable them to do this so well. Not only adapting their own practices and procedures, but having to rely on technology to be able to achieve this feat, as I said, at pace and scale, right in the glare of public kind of awareness and central government challenge. This would have been scarcely conceivable just a few weeks earlier. If you said this is what you're going to do, and having to use technology to sift, to interview, to induct. And many of our colleagues, as also applies in private sector, have never met their colleagues physically. This has all been done virtually. And another organisation to watch out for in terms of what they did was NHS England and Improvement. I mean, really deserve a huge amounts of celebration and applause. There are many others, but those are kind of two that I would highlight to you. The second area of challenge was kind of how do you go about coordinating, deploying, and engaging in this massive workforce across public sector. I mean, there are millions of workers who, at the drop of a hat, suddenly found themselves, working from home, needing technology to be able to engage and connect people together. So time's not on my side today to share with the extraordinary leaps that have occurred in strategic workforce planning and logistics. And technology definitely made a huge difference to organizations, colleagues, to be able to do that so quickly. Really revolutionized the thinking, the way that we've adapted to the challenge that have been put in our way. And this has forever changed public sector workforce. It will never be the same. And that is in the main thanks to the availability and swift deployment of technology. And it's the area of engagement that I'm going to briefly touch upon. As humans, we're programmed to come together in times of crisis. And during COVID, we've seen the power of camaraderie and connection in the shape of virtual catch-ups for friends who can't see each other, online groups to support vulnerable neighbors and people in the community. I mean, it's been really incredible. And the same goes to work as well. At times of crisis, feeling connected to our work-based community, even if that community is dispersed around kitchen tables over the country, is vital for motivation and engagement with our fellow colleagues. And this conditioned way that we had operated, probably for many, certainly in the public sector, this kind of centralized message down command and control approach that you see too often, is no longer appropriate. It's really a thing of the past. And what I've witnessed firsthand and colleagues have shared with me is that public sector organizations have positively embraced the opportunity of virtual working to cultivate this sense of community among employees, making everyone feel central and included. It's not saying that it's perfect by any stretch, but I couldn't have imagined this to have taken place 12 months ago. It just wouldn't have been something that organizations would have embraced to the degree they've had to. And yet they've managed to achieve something which is really effective. And in times of crisis, we each face unique circumstances, but for businesses that usually take that top-down approach to employee engagement, this is a situation which offered us a chance to engage with employees and pool kind of the whole team's collective creativity to respond to new challenges and create new methods and ways of working, the application and deployment of services to our local communities, and outcomes that have really brought benefit, I think, certainly to the most vulnerable. And check out the brilliant work of Somerset County Council and Bucks Council. I mean, there are many others that I could cite, but those are two great case studies that are worth watching. And what we've seen on display by these two organizations in particular is communication with clarity. So, their websites are really sharp and effective, and they've communicated complex information in a simple manner to create a single source of truth where employees can ask questions and access important messages, really swiftly and quickly, picking up on those points of kind of shorter communication, huddles and briefings. And have connected as a community. Connecting as a community during this time has taken real ingenuity and imagination for an organization that predominantly would have been a physically based workforce. We might have talked about flexible working, but that probably meant, some people working sometime, for an hour or two at home or a day or two. But the vast majority of people, believe me, were very much wedded to the desk in the office. That might not have been out of choice. That might have been because the organization wasn't really in that position of saying we will allow that to happen, or we trust that to happen. But now, because it has to happen, this has required a huge shift in approach. And they've been able to do this by embracing video calls, using the opportunity of technology to capture and share information and stories much more effectively. And we've seen the hosting of virtual platform, that features tailor-made learning modules, online forums to actually engage in that learning and development piece that organizations desperately need at this time. And look at the education sector and how they've responded, really quickly as well. And all having genuine community of talented workers who brought together to help find these solutions. It's really brought about, a strength of purpose and morale, I think, for many. I'm not dismissing the fact that, of course, it's been challenging, which I'll come on to in a second. And the final thing around kind of the workforce is about co-creation. And through technology, we've been able to bring together people to help find solutions within a virtual workforce, drawing on different perspectives and life experiences. That's helped tackle those looming challenges and giving people tools to test, iterate, and learning which were not available previously. Employees have been given a chance to connect also with each other using their individual strengths, to work towards that bigger and shared outputs, helping shift and change the way services are delivered. And check out the work of Salford City Council for a real source of inspiration in this area. And the subject, the impact of many of our public sector workers really is around mental health and emotional well-being. It's a hugely difficult time. So, I've talked about some of the great stuff, but the reality is many are facing real hardship in terms of this space, dealing with life and death on a day-to-day basis. And where do you go with that? It's a huge challenge and continues to be and will continue to be for a long time to come. And there's been much shared and written on this hugely important subject. So I'm not going to go into any detail here today, but I do want to share with you a couple of brilliant examples of how through the use of technology, public sector organizations have been able to provide some brilliant support. So this really was a surprise to me. It was a great surprise. Check out the brilliant work of the London Borough of Hounslow, who this month have been running a digital health and wellbeing festival. And it's been led by their ICT team. It's been brilliant. And it's packed full of incredible learning, real insightful kind of opportunities to bring people together to talk about issues relating to health and well-being, and especially men's health and well-being, which is a very important subject to me. And they're just amazing what they've achieved. Would this have happened because of the situation? Definitely it wouldn't have been able to happen if technology wasn't available to them. And PPMA ourselves, we've devised a program that allows people to check in with their emotional mental health and well-being. These are focused conversations that last 20 minutes. It takes up to 8 people. And the purpose is nothing other than being able to share how you're feeling, and people listen and appreciate what they've heard. And that sense of really connecting with people is so important. And these are conversations purely about feelings and experiences. They're not transactional business conversations at all. Hugely powerful, and I'm happy to share more information around that. And I personally have been running daily mindfulness sessions at 8:30 every morning, every weekday. And these are open to anybody. And I extend that invitation and offer to yourselves. You don't have to be an experienced practitioner, but if you want an opportunity to test out and get involved with a community of people practicing mindfulness every day and just being still enough for long enough, then please join me. So from this horrendous worldwide experience, we've seen unintended positive innovations and embracing technology that would have otherwise, I'm sure, have taken years or if not decades, if ever, to have achieved. And the world of work in public sector has forever changed. And we need now is to prepare for that easing into the world that we're now inhabit, because we're definitely not going back to what was. And this is potentially exciting, but equally needs to be managed in a very sophisticated and an engaging way. and recognizing that human beings are very complex emotional creatures. But I think we've highlighted that public sector have definitely stepped up to the challenge and embraced technology. So I'm going to leave you with one little tip before I finish. And this is using technology to help just bring about a sense of being able to arrive, breathe, and connect with whoever's in front of you if you have back-to-back meetings. So you would sit comfortably in your chair, put your feet on the ground, feel your sitting bones and lift through the spine. Allow your belly to be soft and take 3 deep in-breaths. Allow your diaphragm to flatten, your belly expand and contract as you breathe out. And looking at your screen, so we're going to use technology to help. And we start at the bottom left-hand corner. We're going to go up the short side. So we breathe in, our diaphragm flattens to the top of the screen, and breathing out using the long extension of the screen, so a longer out breath. Breathe in, go down the right-hand side of the screen, short side, and breathing out along the bottom. We're going to do 3 repetitions. So breathing in, going up the short side, breathing out, going along the long side, breathing in, going down the short side, and breathing out the long side of your screen. So as you finish that 3rd repetition, this allows you to connect with whatever's going on in front of you and just release and let go of the session or the piece of work you were working on. So always use that as your kind of aid. Settle, ground, connect, so arrive, feel the situation, let go of where you've come from with the piece of work you were doing, breathe deeply, and prepare positively for who you're going to engage with. So I leave you with that. I'm going to hand back to Andy, and thank you so much for the invitation, and I wish you well.
So thank you to Katie and Leatham, and thank you to everyone who's attended today's sessions. This is such an incredibly expansive topic, and I hope that we've shed some light on how important communication and collaboration is for people management, and that unified communications platforms are essential to keep our teams connected, and most importantly, the individuals healthy. We'd love to invite people to come to our stand, meet the team, ask questions, and see the wealth of smarter working content that we've produced. If you don't have time today, get in touch and we can discuss your challenges and how the right technical solution can meet the needs of your users and your organization. Thank you.